Okay, my friends, as you will see, meteorites are not understood, and that is an iron or metal meteorite. I don't think anybody would argue with that. What would I want to argue about is with this, and it's not an argument, it's what is it? What's that red spot? What's this black spot? What's going on down here? Why is it red on the edge here and black down here on the edge there? And why is it so brilliantly red here? And that is brilliant, brilliant red. Brilliant red. Why? Well, I can tell you why. Let's get started. Hello, my outstanding friends. Shocker du jour supreme deluxe over the top. We're going to be talking about meteorites. And they are broadly classified as stony or iron or some of each stony iron. Now the stony iron they claim are the rarest. Well, I have a whole selection of them here. I have all of the different types right here. And I think I have other ones that they don't even know about. So let's see. I put out a video the other day asking for help from an expert about my meteorites, and I didn't get any responses. So we're just going to have to make our own claims. And you tell me if I'm wrong, or you tell me if I'm right. And if there's an expert out there, I would certainly like to engage. That's what I try to do, is work with experts, and they basically have refused. Because the things that I present are very, very hard to dismiss. And you're not going to be able to dismiss this unless you can give me an explanation. And I'm certainly willing to listen. Okay, there's a little iron meteorite, the same as this one here. You see all the little pock marks in it. And it's basically, it's all metals and primarily iron. And I can tell you why in a minute, but I'm going to make some statements. I'm going to show you an iron meteorite cut in half and some outrageous statements. And then I'm going to support them with factual evidence. Okay, my friends, we're doing meteorites today, and they are on the table right here. And I have every type of meteorite there is: the stony, the iron, the stony iron, and I also have other ones, or at least one other one that I don't think anybody's ever seen before. I'll show you that. And what is this, and what is that? Let's look at that very carefully. Of course, you understand, this is a little iron meteorite. All right, and you see them all the time. They have all these little holes in them. It's iron. It's metals, this is metals too. It's not just iron. All the metals, when you smelt something that has, it's biology. This is a lung. I'm just going to tell you right now, and these are blood vessels. That is a vein, black, and that is an artery, red. And they came right up the side, I can tell, because up in here, there's red right in this wrinkle coming up. That was where the artery ran all the way up to the top. And this tip tells me, I believe this is a digital terminus, which means it's the end of a finger or a toe. And the red comes down and it comes over to the vein, and the vein brings it back. Now let's look at this in its entirety. But don't forget, this is an iron meteorite that came through space. Nobody is going to deny that. Nobody can deny that. It came through space, and it has blood in it, and nobody can deny that either. And I can almost guarantee you they could do some form of a test to prove that that is blood. They say, oh, that's just iron oxide, and that's just iron oxide. Well, why? Why is it in the middle of a burnt up, I believe, digital terminus? Okay, my friends, I'm about to make some outrageous but true statements. This is blood. The red blood, and this would be where the iron blood came through, filled in with silicates. These are what's called chondrules, and guess what this is? This is a meteorite, and it's called the oldest solid material in the solar system. Is this mass right here? These are all chondrules. They're little balls. Now let me show you what this really is, and it's biology. I have absolute 100% proof of my statements. And we have biology right here on Earth that came from Asteroid Bennu and is not being examined correctly. Let me explain. Now, I have all the different types of meteorites here, the stony, the chondrule, all of them. But as I just showed you this one here, this would be considered a stony meteorite with all these chondrules on it. And I will explain to you what those chondrules are. Then you get into the iron meteorites like this. Now, this is cut across. It's an iron meteorite. Something like this would have started out as an iron meteorite, and they just cut across it. And inside is all these metals that have coagulated, flocculated together. Now, the bigger the item is, the more it will smelt, and the more it will, you won't even see these. Like this started out probably with all these little holes like that. But as it just melted, it just came in. The more it melts, the more it just comes together. Now, what is this doing here, and what is that doing there in the middle of this iron meteorite? Let me show you what they are, close up and personal. Well, that is close up and personal. here's from a distance. All right, this is the whole thing. Well, what is it? Well, it's just a bunch of iron, a bunch of metals. Why? What about this wrinkly looking thing, and what about this wrinkly thing? Why is this one red and why is that one black? You see this one here? If you look really close, you can see there's red in there. You see that? And this over here is just brilliant red coming in. Now, we as Mudfossil people know red and black means vein and artery. And that is the artery side, and this is the vein side. Now, I got a feeling this could be like at the tip of a finger or something, because that's how it comes through. The black blood is on one side, the vein, and the red blood is on the other side. And they just snap right off where they attach. Now, I can't make any determination like that. It's just too melted. But fingers and toes, hearts, livers, lungs, saturated with blood. Saturated with blood. There's so much blood in your fingertips you just can't imagine. And if a creature dies with their fingers down and the blood seeps down into their fingers, it becomes almost 100% blood. And that could have been just what that is. Or it went flopping through space and the blood just centrifuged out into the, which they call a distal, furthest distance away from the heart, which would be the end of the fingertip, which would be right here. Now, I have a fingertip right here. It was completely eroded away. And you see this? This would be basically right at the very, very, very end of the tip. That's the what they call the apical tuft. This could be, because the rest of the fingertip would come back to here. And I got so much stuff, it's overwhelming. But my point is, there is blood in this because it was a body part. I don't know what it was. I've made of all kind of determinations about it, but I don't have enough evidence. I need to see what's this going on here. I need to see what's here, and on the other side, what, like I have this one here. I don't know what this is. I really got to be honest with you. I have no idea, but I think it's some kind of an organ, but I don't see any specific structure in here. But I do see it's just all cooked off, as you can see, all around, coming through the atmosphere, and it's got the scale all around. I wouldn't look at it in a microscope. And it's cooked. I really got to look at this close, because there's a couple of there's that one seam here, but I don't see much of anything else in there. I'd say that's got to be an organ. Anyway, there's a little bit iron. This is stony iron. Stony iron means it's not iron enough to be really magnetic like this one here. This was a lung. Lungs are just saturated with iron because it's blood, and it boils off and turns into iron. I'm telling you, we're living in a world that nobody ever expected. It's just, and it's hard for people to accept. It's hard for them to even consider. That's the problem. That's the real problem. They have to consider it and they have to address it. I'm showing evidence. It's undeniable. That is not deniable. That's in our hands, and Bennu is in our hands, retrieved from Asteroid Bennu, a mission out there. They brought it back, and it's heart sarcomeres, phosphate layers, which are the membranes. It's 100% the biology of heart, and it has all the DNA, the uracil, the RNA, everything. And it's so much for the human mind to even address that it's been sitting around for almost 2 years now, and they just haven't considered the obvious. All right, my friends, this is a selection of meteorites, and this is a selection of meteorites. We're going to be looking at it under a microscope. I have the iron, I have the stony, I have the iron stony, and I have one that I don't think anybody's ever seen before, which I will show you, which I'm going to call a bony. And I'm going to call all of this stuff 100% of the things in space are biological. This, I am going to show you in 1 second, has blood in it, red blood, and vein blood, artery and vein. And it comes right down the side. The black runs right out the side here, which is, I understand this, and then it also runs the red and the black in the center, and the red is on this other side and runs down the side of what I think I know what this is. And I'm going to explain to you in a minute. It's off the charts crazy. Not my fault. It's what it is. Don't forget, you got vein blood here, and there's your terminus. You've got artery blood here, and there's your terminus. You've got vein and artery blood here. Let's look at what a fingertip looks like, because I'm telling you right now, I believe that's a fingertip. Before we see the fingertip, it's 100% for certain that's red blood. Well, it's red, whatever it is, and for some reason it runs right down the side here, all the way to the end, which I don't have here. I just got this big shot, and this is the black part, and that runs over to the side too, which I just showed you a second ago. So those two are just undisputably black and red, and here's where the red runs to this, which sort of broke off semi-evenly, and then there's red and black here too, Y, and then there's the black here. So red, black. The black runs up to its terminus, the red is the tip, the terminus, running back towards the heart. So this would be, they would call this the distal end of a fingertip. See, this is the end of a fingertip. You got two spots here, which are, let's say, from the artery, and it comes to its terminus at the end, and then you have the two spots here, which I showed you back on that other one, and two on the side. They come in from the bottom, heavy duty. Well, the artery comes in, the vein comes back. Right? That's why one of them's red and one of them's black. And then in the center, you have those two little spots that show up, just a little tiny spots. Those are the little feeders for the center ones, which I think I showed you somewhere here. Yeah, right here. Don't forget, there's the red blood coming in. It filters its way over in a living thing, and then it ends up getting into the vein, and the vein brings it back up to the heart to be pumped. This is also bringing blood in, the red side, and some vein blood going back. That's the nature of blood. It comes in, it goes back. But this is the tips of your fingers and the tips of your toes. I refer to them as the digital terminus, and there is a ton of blood there. That's where all your blood goes. It ends up going there. That's where all it ends up, and then it comes back. And there is no question in my mind, and I know this can be tested, and I have these meteorites right here, and I know this one here. Well, there's a couple of them that, well, I know there's absolutely no question there's something we could find in here that would be better than this quality. This was heated up so much that it completely turned into a ball of metals. This was so small that it's heated enough to cause stony iron. This is a stony iron, only it's more iron than it is stony. And I'm sure there's, well, obviously there's a spectrum, because it's the stony turning into metal by burning off all the stony stuff. So it didn't burn off enough of all of the stony stuff. There's still some good stony stuff here. And I'll show you. Where do you see this tip in the microscope? And all these are alveoli that explode coming through space as it heats up, because they're little bags of blood, and they just pop. And when you see it in the microscope, you can't miss it. You can see the blood, you can see the fibers, you can see the pleura, you can see the latch right there that latches that lung into the body of whatever it was in. And it was in some kind of little chipmunk or something. I have no idea. And then I have other ones that, I got all kinds of stuff here. This one is intriguing. All right, you see that? Wait till I show you this thing. This is intriguing, my friends. Now, and then of course I have this one, which is even more intriguing, and which came through space. This is a complete stony. That's a stony, which is that. And then of course I showed you the iron, which is basically an iron. Well, this is iron stony. I don't really have any real solid iron ones like that. No, I don't have that. Mine are too small. Now, I'm not making these claims offhandedly. I've been doing this for many years, and I've been quite vocal about it. And I asked chat, what is my opinion on matter? And it said, Roger Spur of Mudfossil University platform claims that much of what we observe in space, including asteroids, meteorites, planets, even comets, are biological in origin. His theory proposes that many or even all cosmic bodies, and I say all, are fossilized remains of biological life forms. Some of them are not even fossilized. They're still pretty wet. There was a Kentucky meat shower in, I think it was 1876, and the meat came all over this woman's property. One guy ate some of it. He said it tasted like elk. All right, so I say biological, their life forms, including tissues, organs, cellular structures, have been preserved on a gigantic scale. Yes, chat, exactly correct. Well, what else? Key points of Roger Spur's claims. Mud fossils on Earth. He first proposed that rocks and mountains on Earth are fossilized soft tissues of once living creatures, including lungs, tendons, blood vessels, even entire body parts. Biological meteorites and asteroids. Spur has extended this idea to space objects, claiming many meteorites, not many, all, are fossilized biological materials like organs or muscle. Surface textures and internal compositions of asteroids resemble biological tissue and blood. They don't resemble, they are. Cratering, coloration, and mineral content support this interpretation according to his analysis. No, according to reality. Everything is biological. That's my statement. And that's exactly correct. He has suggested that all matter, or nearly all, not all, is ultimately derived from biological processes, including planets, moons, possibly even stars. Yes. Space is full of organic matter, no question whatsoever. He points to the presence of carbon, amino acids, complex molecules, DNA, RNA, uracil, 16,000 biological chemicals, sarcomeres, phosphate layers of membranes in Bennu, taken from space back to Earth. I point to them because they're there. I'd like to have somebody discuss it. So I point to the presence of all of these things, amino acids, the building blocks of life, DNA, RNA, uracil, all of that, and complex molecules in comets and asteroids, as Bennu, they just brought back to Earth, space dust as evidence biology is universal, not just earthbound. No, it's all over Mars, it's everywhere. Is this mainstream science? Hell no. These views are not supported by mainstream geology, astronomy, or biology. Yes, they are, if they would look at them. Why? No peer review evidence, because they won't peer review it. I show the evidence. The evidence is there. It's the peer review that's not there. All right, standard science holds meteorites and asteroids, primordial rock and metal. From where? From where? Formed from non-biological processes in the early solar system, from a big bang. Organic molecules can form abiotically in space. Yeah, why? How does that happen? But this doesn't make the entire object biological or fossilized life. There is no peer review. That's the key. These are my claims, 100% biology, and I'm going to show you. If you can deny it, deny it. I'd like to have some expert deny it and discuss it and have an interview with me, and we can discuss it back and forth. I'll be respectful, but I can show the evidence to support my side of the claims, and I don't think there's any evidence to support theirs. But they might have some. I know that the minerals and the metals are there. There's no question about that. But the biology is there too. And the biology creates the minerals and metals. Metals are in blood. All right. This talks about 26 metals is a common number used in the study. And it's not an absolute number. It can be much higher than that. And it's all these metals, basically. And a bunch of other minerals, all kinds of stuff. In the blood, in the serum, and in the plasma. There are 3 different states of the blood. And I looked into all 3 to see what the difference is in the metal concentrations in these different states of the blood. Very interesting study. It was on, I think there's 106 healthy people. And they did all 3 states of their blood to see what the variations were. Very interesting study. You got a lot of work to look into that. But that's what's in your body, and that is what they call them transition metals, because they transition things through your body. They bring them over, drop them off, and go back and get recharged. It's a polar thing. It's all about polar stuff. And this is all about studies measuring metals in blood. So I'm telling you, blood smelts into the metals. Basically, it's the blood that's giving the metals into these meteorites that are being smelted coming through space. And you got to get hot. Well, hold on. All right, I just showed you there's like a bazillion metals in blood. And these are the melting points and the smelting points of different metals. These are metals. So they're in the blood. We know that. There's just no question about it. This is a little iron meteorite, and it's a lung, and there is no question about that, as I will show you in the microscope. And it's iron, but it's not 100% iron. So instead, its temperature that it must have reached would have probably been about 2,700 degrees, 2,750, maybe 2,800 on the low end. So it still had some nickel, and it wasn't entirely iron. All right, so when you get up to the extreme temperatures, way up, it just melts everything into a little ball of iron. The hotter you get, the more pure the iron becomes. It just gets rid of all the other stuff, and iron remains. All the other stuff burns off at lower temperatures. You see, you can get iron-nickel alloys at 2,640. Well, see, this is what this is right here. There it is. Between 2,640 and 2,800. In that range, in between there, gives you this. Iron-nickel. And these are the rare ones, they say. All right, well, let's just get started. I got stony meteorites. I've got the chondritic types ones, the chondrules. I have the iron style, stony iron maybe you'd call that, depends. It's very magnetic. And then I have this one here, which I show all the time. I just put a little tiny bit of water on there, and you can see how quickly it rehydrates into blood. I think you can see how red that is. I don't know. That's pretty red. And the reason it's so red still is because when this came through space, what happened was there was a plate that ran all across here. That was another layer. And it snapped right here because that's where the anchor is. And then we're going to look at the anchors too, because these are the anchors. We're going to look at that in the microscope. But when it did, it got so hot that that blood that was there, it was still wet, expanded and blew that layer right off. That's why it's still so extremely red. And you can see right at that little spot right there where it comes in. That little tab right there. That's where it locked itself in. And there's some black blood there that does not mix with the red, and the red is just all over the place. And as soon as you put a little taste of water on it, it rehydrates. That's the deal with the red blood. Red blood just stays forever red. Fluidy. And this one, the stony one, exploded because this was saturated with red blood too. This side was the artery side. This is the vein side. You see that little hole? You see that circle right there? That's where the vein was. And right up here is the other vein hole. And at the end would have been where the vein is. All right, and it's all through space and burnt up. And got so hot that the blood in here exploded. Now, I drilled that hole. I drilled that hole in there to get fresh red blood out of there, which you got to go deep inside. I don't take it off the surface. I don't think I drilled that one. Maybe I did. I don't know. I have to remember. But you could drill into these. It's just not a problem. See, it's simple. And this is a fingertip came through space. He's, oh, come on, Roger. Yes, it is. And I have one here on Earth that is identical. The hook, the two blood vessels, the veins, and here's the arteries on the other side, just like this one. No difference whatsoever. The two on this side and the one on the end. This one just exploded, so you don't see it, but this one just drained out. Now that was drained because it got squished flat. It obviously shouldn't be that flat. It's a fingertip. Somehow it was crushed flat, and it squished all the blood out. Now look at this. You see that little spot right there? Look at this. It's got the same spot. You see it? That's an anchor. Now you see this? You can't possibly believe that that's just accidentally perfectly round. And there's another accidentally perfectly round one here. And this one was where the artery was, and it exploded out. Because there was wet blood in this when this came through space. It's out there, it's wet. And I think they found water and everything in the Bennu sample. Now all of the little strappy parts of the tendons boiled off, and you can see where those little holes are. All right, and you see all blanched off, and that's because this came through space and got real hot, and where it still had red blood, which was this side, exploded out. Then I have this one, which is extremely, I would say probably the rarest meteorite that's ever been. That is extremely magnetic, and this is bone. This is the marrow from within a bone. And the bone part is not magnetic, but the marrow part is. And it's highly magnetic. It's not just a little bit magnetic. Now, I believe I showed you the temperatures you have to reach. Why did this bone remain bone? And this turned into just a nice, strong magnetic iron. The only thing I can say that I believe is this bone, this was the marrow inside, which is literally solid iron. It's blood, it's all bloody marrow. And that would have turned to iron, which it did. And the temperatures, you have to have the certain temperature to boil everything off and leave the metals. So we're going to go through some microscopic shots of all this because it's very, very interesting. To me, it's very interesting. Some people, no big deal. But I want to show you well, let me just, hold on one second. All right, this is completely over the top shocker. You see that? That's a fingertip. And this was CAT scanned, DNA tested. It's a fingertip. You see that? That almost looks like it was cut off of this. And it is not. This one is cut off of this big piece up here. This one here. Now, mine was CAT scanned. This one here was CAT scanned. And this is just the cut and the look of it. Now, this is the look of the CAT scan, which would be just like I cut mine. But this is the 3D deep look into the inside of that fingertip. This, they just cut it across, so you can see it quite obviously. But what I want you to look at is this right here. Now just take your time, let your eyes focus in for a second. This is the dead center of this bone, and it's a bone. You got this right here, is the core of the bone. Now take your time, slow down. In addition to the core of the bone, you have a flare at the bottom, which is this piece. This is the difference between the core of the bone, which is this is the center, and then the flare of the bone. And when I say a core and a flare, it's exactly what it is. This one here creates its own little stem going up. This is basically the anchor spot at the bottom that holds it in place. Now take your time, look at it again. Look at these details. You see that? Let your eyes sink into this. You got to get a mud fossil eyes. You see this? You see that? Just follow it. This down here is, it looked like it could have been burnt off or what, I don't know. But my specimen looks almost identical to that in the CAT scan. Now, it's sideways, so but it's, you can see right here, if this was tipped this way, that's what you'd be looking at. You see the center? That's what I was talking about before. You see this ring here? That ring is the bottom part that really holds the fingertip in place. And then from that, it tapers up until you get to the apical tuft. And the apical tuft is up here at the very end of the fingertip. And all your little tendons anchor into there. But down here, at the very bottom, you have blood vessels coming in both sides, and you have tendons. And I'll show you that in the CAT scan as well. Hold on. All right, what you were just looking at in the 3D where you're inside is this. This is a 2D where we're going to surface scan from a million different angles and putting it together and making it into something quite easily to see. You see that? You see that little core right there? Take your time. You see that? That's a blood supply. And that is a tendon. That's why you can do this. And the blood makes it so that it has energy. Now, this is the other side of that finger. And that's the tendon, same as this on this side. And this is not the same color as this because you got the black and the red blood. Two different colors. Now, this is the bone. Right, that's the bone. And this is actually that fingertip. And at the very end, inside there, you have one of these, which is an apical tuft. So the big piece down here, which I showed you before, the big piece shows up at the bottom, and then it flares up to the apical tuft. And that's what holds all the tendons in. And this was DNA tested, so it's not something I'm making up. And as you can see, it's virtually the same thing as this. And this one has, like I said, that's the same thing, the central part of the bone and then the outer part of the bone, as I showed you in the CAT scan. All right, central part of the bone, outer edge of the bone. And then you got some big arteries going up in there, arteries and veins. Now, let me show you something that happened in this one right here. This shows it cut off. Here's what they did. They found this big, I'm saying it's a fingertip. Well, I can't be positive of that. I'd like to see what it's constructed of down on the other side and so forth, because this is the only side I've seen. This right here, take your time and look. That right there, and that little center, this is the bone. That's the bone. Now they cut off this spot here, which was the flare. This, I believe, was on top of there. I'm pretty sure. Now you see that hole right there? Why is that hole there? And what's going on with this one here? And why is this big round bone in the middle? And this is the tendon. And that's the other tendon. Now, I don't have good shots of this, but I'm saying these are two of the tendons, just like I showed you on mine. And these are the blood supply, which this has eroded off here and here, been burnt off coming through space, but it didn't get to the bone. It left the bone. But it burnt off this area here, and it probably exploded off because there was probably still blood in there. And the same thing here, it popped off. And you ended up with the bone, just the bone. And then the rest is the fingertip coming up. And this shows where this has smelted quite a bit. And the fingertips, like I said, they are saturated with blood. I mean, absolutely saturated. So that's where, and the blood smelts, and the blood contains the metals, and the metals are in the, wherever there's a lot of metals, like inside of lungs. A lot of metals, they turn into iron. Inside of liver. Heart. Excellent, excellent smelting, causing iron and metals. Okay, this is Roger once again. I made a whole bunch of statements and you've gone through all this, but the stony, the iron, and the stony iron meteorites are what we're going to be looking at in the microscope shortly. Okay, meat fell from the sky. The Kentucky meat shower, a bizarre event in 1876. Chunks of meat fell from the sky in Bath County. The exact cause remains a mystery. No, it isn't. It was a body part exploded coming through space. The most common theory is that vultures, having overeaten, vomited mid-flight, and the meat was then scattered by wind. This one guy ate it. He said it tasted like elk. There's nothing but biology, and once it comes through, it can come through very, very wet. Okay, this is run pretty long, and people get upset when it goes long, so I'm going to cut it off here and do part 2. And that is the red blood coming out of this bone. And that's a bone. All right, you see that? That's a bony material, and guess what? That red blood has turned black because it's been cooked and smelted. out of the marrow of the bone, and that is highly magnetic, and you don't get that until you hit an extreme temperature. Now, why didn't that just cook off too? Why didn't that burn? It's because it came through the particles in space, which is the ionosphere, and it just overcooked, it just overheated. And cooked off all the cheap stuff in the blood, which is the fluidy stuff right there. You see that? Watch this. That particular spot is magnetic. The rest is not magnetic. Hold on. Throw a couple of little balls on there, you see. Oops. You see this? Magnetically, they're just being held on there because it's turned into iron. But down here, it won't hold because it's down here, it's still bone. You put it here, it just rolls right off. You can't get it to stay there. But down here, where it's the blood is boiled off. Now, you would expect both of those things to have been heavily reacted by this kind of temperature, but the white stuff, which is the bone, just kind of blanched off. It's almost like you took a little blowtorch and squirted it at that. But the blood here, that stuff really cooked. So I say that was marrow, and that's like some kind of big blood vessel or something right there. You see how round that is? So that's probably an artery. Well, I would say almost absolutely there's an artery right there feeding something, or from the bone marrow feeding out through that artery, something like that. But I'm almost certain that's an artery that has just smelted because it's red blood and it turns into iron. All right? That's about it for today. I'm going to just keep going with this until it starts to be understood, and we can start to see the world for what it is right around us. Because right now, you just accept the words that are being told to you, and you really have to accept them and repeat them, or they will fail you in your life. That's not a good system. Mudfossil University is the place to be to learn the actual truth and then discuss it. It's okay to talk about mainstream. I have no problem with that. I know everything that mainstream has to say. I had to study every bit of it, 100%. And I found out, I'm not kidding you, I found literally nothing that was correct. I mean, I'm serious, literally nothing. So, stay with me, and we're going to get into the microscope. We're going to get into all these little buggers, and stay with me. Stay with me. All right, I'll talk to you later. Love you all.